Buick GMC Cadillac.
Gary Bartoo, he's our guy. College football standings and release for the playoff. And again, for many more things than that as well, joins us on 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Let's cut straight to it. Cincinnati's in the top 4. We know what happened over the weekend. Do you feel like this is just appeasing anyone that was kind of complaining about Cincinnati? Are they going to be this year's version of 2014 TCU?
No, I don't think they'll be this year's version of 2014 TCU because Cincinnati at least has a conference championship game. Bob screwed this up by not having the conference championship game. I guarantee you, if Baylor TCU played in a Big 12 championship game, one of those two was going to be top 4 at the end, period. That's the way it works. And what happened is when they got left out because there was no championship game. That championship game is an extra top 25 win. It's an extra quality win. It's an extra boost in strength of schedule. It's everything. That's why they got bumped down. And then the reason that it also got bumped down is when Bob said, look, it's a tie. There's no winner. Okay, fine. You can be tied outside the top 4. So that's what happened there. Now, Cincinnati, completely different set of circumstances. They do have a conference championship game. I think they're slated. Are they slated to play Houston right now?
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Okay, so they're going to pick up a top 25 win. If they beat Houston, we're all destined for Cincinnati to lose. We're destined for Alabama to get beat by Georgia, and Notre Dame sneaks into the 4th spot. That's how this is all supposed to work, right?
That is one of the conspiracy theories, no question about it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we're down to 7 teams, though. We're down to the top 7, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Cincinnati, Michigan, Notre Dame, Oklahoma State. That's it. I think, everybody else is drawn dead right now, in my opinion.
If Oklahoma State wins Bedlam, turns around, and then beats Baylor for a second time, who's ranked in the top 10, and of course they have Texas Tech, are they in?
Yes, they are. They are, because in that circumstance, if Bama beats Georgia, Georgia's still going to get the 4th spot. Oklahoma State's going to get the 3rd spot. And if Alabama beats Georgia, it's going to be Alabama, Georgia both being in. If Georgia beats Alabama, Georgia's going to stay 1, Ohio State will be 2, Oklahoma State is still going to be 3, and 4 will be whoever's left over. It's going to be Cincinnati or Notre Dame or Alabama. But the way I see it right now, 12-1 Oklahoma State is locked into the 3 seed.
So let's say this. You get down to where that happens the way you mentioned, and you get to 4. You have Alabama, a 2-loss Alabama, might depend on how well they play against Georgia, and that's, of course, if they take care of business against Auburn. And then you have the Cincinnati-Notre Dame thing. There's no way, Dave, even if they're like, look, if that is obvious that Cincinnati has to be 4 and Notre Dame outside of 4, what's going to happen?
Oh, if Cincinnati wins out in that scenario?
Yeah.
I think, if you're looking at Cincinnati 12-1, Alabama 11-2, Notre Dame.
Cincinnati would be 13-0. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, they'd be 13-0. They would be the 4 seed.
Yeah, isn't that
crazy? They'd be the 4 seed.
So,
yeah, it is, and it's all because they played at Notre Dame. It's all Notre Dame's fault, right? It was at Notre Dame and beat Notre Dame.
And there was always the thought, and again, some things happened this weekend. Michigan State got their doors blown off. Oregon losing badly to Utah knocked them out of the equation. So in the end, there's a chance, more than just a chance, but a pretty good chance that Cincinnati, a group of 5 team, will be in the mix. It's not in the mix. They're in the mix, but they could get to the playoff. Isn't that what people clamor for? I don't know what ESPN clamors for, or the big boys in the room, but there's no way you could keep them out.
I guess you could if you wanted to be a jerk about it and go outside the ranking rules, but the bottom line at 13-0, having beat Notre Dame and within the framework of the rules that the committee works under, they've played their way in. There was enough chaos, and now granted, they still got to win 2 more football games. I mean, This is a team that has beat Tulane by a touchdown and beat Navy by a score and has dodged a lot of bullets on the way. And you and I both know we've been doing this long enough. Usually national title winners at some point dodge a bullet. Heck, look at Georgia. Yeah. Clemson was a pick 6 away from beating them in week 1. So, Cincinnati, though, is in position. They are certainly not out of it. 1 through 7. Actually, 1 is in. Georgia's in. So right now, what we really have is we have 6 teams playing for 3 spots.
Yep, that's what you're saying. And again, Cincinnati does play at East Carolina. They're, again, you never know what can happen. That's a 7-4 team as well, even though they'll be favored. So, what if Michigan plays Ohio State really, really tight? What if and I think Ohio State can beat most anybody right now. And, of course, that game with Georgia, if that ever happens, would be fun because of the octane offense of Ohio State and what they look like. But I like to look into some opportunities here. What if Michigan plays Ohio State off their you-know-what, 30-27? Can they still get? They won't have a Big Ten game, so they're done, right? That's kind of an elimination game.
They're done,
yeah.
Right? It's kind of an elimination game. That's the whammy of losing a football game.
Yeah.
Is not only do you have a loss, but you're not picking up a quality win. You're not picking up a top 25 win. So now you're looking at Michigan at 10-2. With 4 quality wins, 1 top 25 win. Alabama, if they lose to Georgia, 11-2. And they're going to have 5 quality wins, 3 top 25 wins, and a tougher strength of schedule. So I think both of them losing, Alabama's still going to be favored over Michigan in the rankings because of the resume. But Michigan still controls their destiny.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they beat Ohio State, and look, the ball ain't round. Bounces go funny, and Michigan's very talented on offense, on defense, and so Michigan, just like Oklahoma State, and Ohio State, they are all in the same boat. They are trying to play their way in, same as Alabama. Those 4, they're trying to play their way in. Notre Dame and Cincinnati probably need help.
So Alabama could end up with 2 losses and still get in. Can Ohio State lose to Michigan and get into the 4? Can they be a college football playoff team? They got the brand name. They're Ohio State.
Stop with the brands. You know that doesn't go into these equations. People just want to believe it does. It just so happens that the biggest brands are also the best recruiters. So That's just the way it is. But with Ohio State, look, if they lose to Michigan, they've already lost once at home. I believe this game is at the Horseshoe as well. So they're going to have 2 losses at home. They're going to have a strength of schedule that will not be better than Alabama's, that will not be better than Michigan's. Their quality win total will be...
The game's actually... I thought you said the game's in Ann Arbor, so it would be a road game.
Is Ann Arbor. Yeah, I just... When you look at these 2-loss teams, Alabama with 2 losses, Ohio State with 2 losses, Michigan with 2 losses, Alabama has done enough to be the best 2-loss team. Their game control is there. Their strength of schedule is going to be there. I think Alabama, if they lose to Georgia, then they're in line for needing help, which would Ohio State needs to lose, Notre Dame needs to lose, Cincinnati needs to lose, that kind of stuff.
All right, so you mentioned Oklahoma State at 7. That 7 teams have a chance. If, in fact, Oklahoma beats Oklahoma State and then beats them again, they're 10-1 right now. And yes, they have at times been kind of a mystery. Would that be enough with a loss to Baylor but beating Oklahoma State if they did back-to-back weeks? And I'm not so sure they win this weekend, but would that be enough to somehow launch them deep into the, we got to look at them seriously or not?
Inside the numbers, no. I don't believe so, because Oklahoma right now, their strength of schedule, according to what Bill Hancock said, is the strength of schedule formula back in 2014. We have Oklahoma right now at 105th. All right, so their strength of schedule is only worse than Cincinnati in the top 15. All right, so I know they'll play Oklahoma State back-to-back, and that will help, but they are going to get 2 quality wins out of that. Their game control has been poor. I think really what it comes down to is in our formula, and it's reared its mighty head before, margin of loss. Now, if you look at everybody else above them, Alabama, they got a loss by a field goal, okay? Ohio State lost by a touchdown at home. Michigan lost on the last play of the game by 4 on the road. Notre Dame got beat pretty hard at home, okay? But Oklahoma got smoked. Absolutely smoked by Baylor. That margin of loss, I'm saying right now, I don't really care what Oklahoma does. In the model, we have them on the outside looking in at the playoffs, no matter what they do.
Baylor has the loss that is going to haunt them to TCU. If they beat Texas Tech and then they beat Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game, how close can they get? It doesn't appear, based on what you're saying, that they have a chance with the 2 losses. But if they avoid one of the losses with a win against Oklahoma State, if they take care of business against Tech as well, can they get at least a seat at the table where they have to be discussed at all?
In the Final Four, no, I don't believe so. With that bad loss to TCU, and you know, I mean, it is what it is. Even Oregon was right on the edge of, you know, even if they won out, that bad loss at Stanford is haunting for them. Obviously, Baylor, if they hadn't lost to TCU, would be sitting at 7 right now. They'd be in Oklahoma State spot, and Oklahoma State would be, you know, and they would have to possibly have the opportunity. Unfortunately, I just don't see it for them being able to win out and get there. This is going to be one of those years where, like, darn it, we wish there was a 12-team playoff this year, right? Yeah,
well, kind of like losing to West Virginia after they had beaten TCU in 2014 that came back to hurt them, plus the lack of a championship game. Okay, you always talk about there's a team in the top 25 down at the bottom. You've kind of, you know, you've taught me this, that there's a prop. I don't know who that would be. Arkansas is 25. Houston is 24. Clemson is moved to 23 now after the win against Wake Forest. And then after that, it's UT San Antonio, San Diego State, North Carolina State.
Right. It all makes sense, right? I mean, our rankings, actually, the model that we had, all 25 teams that are in the current top 25 today, we had modeled in the top 25. They didn't pull anything up from below 25. I think this is a week. There's no props there. This is what it is supposed to look like. Now, the one team that can actually really influence this, if there's full chaos, okay? Alabama loses to Georgia, Cincinnati loses, Alabama, Michigan, Oklahoma State, Baylor, Oklahoma, they're all kind of milling around. Let's say there's 6 teams and one number 4 spot, right? The big game, we had Mississippi State modeled at 26. And if they beat Ole Miss this week, Ole Miss will stay in the top 25. Mississippi State will get into the top 25. That will give Alabama the extra top 25 win that maybe they need to secure that 4 spot. Nothing's propping everything up right now, but I think the game to look at if you're, if you're looking for chaos, Mississippi State beating Ole Miss at home is about the only thing I can see in there to prop up Alabama. The other one out there is Kansas State. They're at 7-4. We had them at number 30, and they have a brutal strength of schedule. Who do they play this week?
Kansas State plays Texas. The quarterback is hurt. They should win the game.
Okay.
Texas
should win the game.
Are hurt too, but Skylar Thompson may be out.
Yeah. Yeah, Texas is the biggest underperformer in college football this year.
Oh, no question.
It's Sarkisian. He's what I call dead man walking. He's minus 6 games coach effect, minus 4 in your first year. Only 5 guys have survived to their 4th year in the last 20. So I think Sark is already done. He's got a 1 in 20 chance of pulling this out and making something of it. So Kansas State at 8-4 might be able to sneak into the top 25, which would definitely help the other Big 12 teams trying to win out above them.
All right. Last week, I believe Gary Bartoo, Iowa's AD, who's the spokesperson, said something about, well, other than watching the games, or some comment that like drove a lot of people over the edge. And then today he specifically talks about everything about Ohio State and Michigan State as if they watched the entire game. Is that just another thing where one week he says one thing, the next week he says something else?
I don't, it's a changing narrative. The media has a changing narrative. I find most of the guys, your SEC honk, your Pac-12 honk, this guy, all they do is their complaints that they have, they just project it onto the committee. They blame the committee for their own problems with the process. So, with Barta, it's kind of a thankless job because, when they talk about watching the games, how many people on the committee really can evaluate watching a team on TV week after week fairly, right? Now if Coach Aranda said, "Hey, I watched all 30 teams for 2 hours apiece," I would value his time and expertise to be able to do that. But this committee member can't do it. AP voters don't have the time and expertise.
Right.
Neither do the coaches poll. So the whole eye test thing is a false narrative. It doesn't exist. These people don't have the time and expertise to do it. The people that do have the expertise don't have the time. So I think when they say stuff like that, it is just designed to keep the focus away from the simplicity that is ranking these teams and trying to keep it complex and keep people engaged. Because if the viewers stop being engaged, then it stops being marketable, and then it stops making money. And now we got to find something else to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question, Gary. Dave Bartoo with College Football Matrix. Craig asked me to ask you this about what is the most overrated head coaching job in college football?
Overrated head coach or the most overrated job?
Overrated head coaching job in college football.
Oh, the overrated one, like an awesome job that is really not that awesome.
Yeah, like, for example, now we know Florida's open, LSU's open, USC's open, and there's others that have opened, Washington. And I'm not saying any of those are it because they all have great kind of like something to cling on to. Is there one in particular that...
I think maybe what comes to mind... what probably, and I've been saying this for a long time, I think the most overrated job is the one that has the national championship expectations without a national championship history. You could call that Texas, but I think that's more recent. I think the biggest brand that people expect the most out of incorrectly is Michigan. Michigan hasn't done anything of significance. Yeah, they have the most wins of all time. Cool. From pre-Civil War through World War I, they won 6,000 games. That's awesome, But really, when you think about it, Bo Schembechler didn't win a thing. He didn't win at all. The best coach at Michigan is Lloyd Carr, and Michigan never recruits in the top 10. So you have national championship dreams with a program that's never had the talent to be there except one time. So I think the toughest job, the most thankless job that people overrank year in and year out, Michigan's got to be one of the top three. I would say Texas. I think Notre Dame is really tough, too, because of the admission standards.
Dave, as always, you gave me some extra special time this week. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely, brother. Anytime. You know where I'm at.
Yep. Dave Bartoo, College Football Matrix on 365 Sports and Sikkim 365 Radio.